I come to the floor today to speak about the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program known as DACA. DACA, an executive order of President Obama, provided temporary, renewable legal status for immigrant students if they registered with the government, paid a filing fee of $500, passed a criminal and national security background check. 780,000 young people stepped forward and did something which they had been warned their entire lives never to do. Their parents knew they were undocumented. They knew that they had been brought to this country at an early age. They knew that they weren't technically legal, and their parents warned them, stay away from cops and government. All that can happen is they discover you're undocumented and deport you and maybe your family as well. Be careful. So President Obama stepped up and said, if you will step forward, tell us who you are, and let us do a background check on you, we're going to give you a chance to earn your way to legal status in America. 780,000 young people took that chance and signed up for DACA. Just this last Monday, I was up in New York City, and I went to Hunter College, which is part of the City Universities of New York, and there were about 5 young people on a forum with me to discuss this bill and the issue of Dreamers and immigration. And it was interesting because each one of them, bright students, impressive young people, before they would say anything, they would introduce themselves by saying something like, my name is Isadora and I have 465 days. And the next one would say, my name is Evelyn and I have 270 days. They were telling me how much time they had left protected to continue on as students. They know that President Trump's decision on September 5th to abolish DACA meant that their protection was going to end as of March 5th next year. And then they face some terrible possibilities. First, deportation. These people have turned themselves in. They stepped up and identified themselves to our government with the belief that our government would not hold it against them. And now they worry that has changed. They're worried about what happens to their family because they had the courage to come up and sign up for this program. These are very real lifetime problems and challenges these young people face. And if you look through the list of those who could be affected if DACA disappears, as President Trump has called for on March 5th, there are some heartbreaking stories. Do you know there are 900 DACA-protected young people who have volunteered and now serve in the U.S. military? That's right. Even though they're undocumented, because of DACA, they were allowed to sign up for a program known as MAVNI, which is a specialized program for those who have talents that are needed in our military, and they literally signed up. Think of that for a moment. Here they are, illegal in America, undocumented in America, willing to risk their lives for America. Why? Because it's the only country they know. They've lived their whole lives here. They've gone to school here. They pledged allegiance to that flag every day in the classroom. That was their flag, their national anthem, their country. But because they were brought here as children, toddlers, infants, necessary papers were not filed, they have no legal status in this country. Well, I hope that we can change that. When I asked President Obama to create this program by executive order, he waited and worked for a year before he came up with it. And I thought it was a good program. It was controversial, but at least for these young people, it gave them a temporary renewable status, and that made all the difference in the world. When Attorney General Sessions announced the end of DACA on September 5th, the President challenged us. He challenged the Senate and the House of Representatives, and he said, do something about this. Pass a law. Take care of this problem. I think DACA was legal, but I'm not going to argue that point anymore. The new president does not. But I accept his challenge, and I think we all should. What can we do that is fair to these young people, that gives them the chance they're asking for, that is consistent with a good immigration policy for America? And that's why years ago I introduced the DREAM Act, and why I still believe it's the right approach. The notion behind it, of course, is if you were brought here as a child, you have no criminal record of any serious nature, you've completed your education, you have a chance to earn your way into legal status and then ultimately into citizenship. And that's what we're working on now. A number of us are getting together, talking about it on a bipartisan basis, and we have little time left. This has to be done this year, before the end of December. Why do I say that if the program expires in March of next year? Well, because I've been around the Senate for a few years, and I know in January and February, there's little, if any, heavy lifting. There are a few bills that have to pass, and we tend to put things off. So far this year, we really wouldn't get gold stars for our performance on the floor of the Senate in generating legislation. That's why I want to get that done, the whole DREAM Act and DACA done in the month of December before we leave. If we don't do it, if we fail, and I pray that we won't, but if we fail, as of March 5th of next year, 1,000 of these young people will lose their protection under the law every single day for 2 years, 1,000 a day. I mentioned to you those serving in the military. 20,000 of those under DACA are teachers. As of March 5th next year, they lose their jobs. School districts all around America will have to fill those vacancies because the teachers can no longer legally work for the school districts. And there are many others that face that as well. We have almost 90% who are engaged in some type of job. Many are students who work because they, as undocumented students, don't qualify for federal assistance. So they hold down jobs to pay for their college education. I've met them. Some of them break down in tears and say, Senator, I'm so close to graduating, but what's the point? If I'm going to be deported the day afterwards, what's the point? That's what we're up against, and that's what we face. So what we need to do is take a look at the real-life stories. I want to introduce to you a person who is a friend of mine. He's an amazing person. This is Cesar Montalongo. Cesar was 10 years old. His family brought him in from Mexico. He grew up in New Mexico, where his academic achievement was quickly recognized. He graduated high school with a grade point average above 4.0. He was ranked third in his class. He was a member of the chess, French, Spanish, physics, and science clubs. He even took college classes the last 2 years of high school. Cesar went on to New Mexico State University, where he was a triple major in biology, microbiology, and Spanish, as well as 2 minors in chemistry and biochemistry. He is one smart fellow. He graduated with distinction on the honors track with a 3.9 GPA. He then earned a master's degree in biology. And the reason he earned a master's degree in biology was his dream was to go to medical school. But before DACA, it was impossible. You could not apply for medical school. The medical schools of America were not accepting the students who were undocumented. And he knew that if he went to medical school anywhere and didn't have a legal right to work, he couldn't complete a residency at the end of medical school. So he took a master's degree in biology and a minor in molecular biology and worked as a teaching assistant. Then DACA came along. Today, Cesar is the first DACA student who is enrolled in the MD PhD program at Loyola University of Chicago's Stritch School of Medicine. He's entering his 3rd year of this highly competitive program. They only accept a handful for an MD PhD. On completion, he'll receive a medical degree and a doctorate in science. He's one of more than 30 DACA recipients at this medical school that I'm so proud of in Chicago. It was, in fact, the first medical school to admit students with DACA status beginning in 2014. DACA students don't get special treatment, no quotas, they have to compete. But bright, amazingly bright young people like Cesar were just waiting for a chance to compete. Many of them have committed in order to finish their education at this medical school. They borrow from the state of Illinois government that gives them a loan for their medical education. For every year that they're given a loan, they pledge to serve 1 year as medical doctors in an underserved area of our state. It's a win-win situation. He is now doing amazing research. He's researching how bladder viruses shape bacteria populations and the potential implications for infection and disease. He's a member of the pathology medical group. He's a Spanish interpreter at the local clinic and a mentor to other medical students. I asked Cesar, what drew you to medicine? Here's what he said. When I was very young, my father became ill and then was bedridden for months. He was the primary breadwinner and I saw him as our protector. Watching him immobilized and screaming in pain had a huge impact on me. Years later, we would find out that my father suffered from diabetic myopathy and neuropathy. Learning that both his illness and our family's suffering could have been prevented by education and relatively inexpensive medication broke my heart. At the same time, it made me realize the potential of medicine. Cesar's dream for the future: to become a practicing physician and a scientist, to develop new and improved clinical diagnostic tools so that doctors can diagnose and treat diseases better. Close to 70 dreamers are enrolled in medical schools around the United States. Why is DACA important to him? Any student like him who is in a medical school today, who wants to go on to a residency, has to be able to work. Residents work long hours in hospitals while they're learning. If he didn't have DACA, he wouldn't have legal permission, legal authority to work in this country. So no medical school will accept him for a residency unless he has that DACA protection. Why in the world would we let this young man's vigorous pursuit for education and brilliance be wasted? We need him. We need him in Chicago. We need him in Illinois. We need him in America, and many more just like him. The Association of American Medical Colleges reports that the nation's doctor shortage will rise to 40,000, even 105,000 by the year 2030. Both the AMA and the Association of American Medical Colleges have warned that ending DACA will hurt when it comes to this physician shortage. They want Congress to do something. Listen to what the AMA says. Estimates have shown that the DACA initiative could help introduce 5,400 previously ineligible physicians into the U.S. healthcare system in the coming decades to help address physician shortages and ensure patient access to care. Removing those with DACA status will create care shortages in rural and underserved areas. Without these physicians, the AMA is concerned that the quality of care provided in these communities will be negatively impacted. Mr. President, I know you're from the state of North Carolina, my state of Illinois. We have some great big cities and we have some great small towns. And many of my best small towns and rural areas from my end of the state are desperate to make sure that they have good doctors at their local hospitals and people available in the community. We can't afford to lose Cesar. We can't afford to lose the thousands of others the AMA tells us are poised to become doctors and to fill our need across America. This aging population of our country is going to need doctors and nurses and physical therapists more than ever. And if these young people can answer that call, they'll not only be serving our nation, number one, but they'll be serving their own goals to be part of our nation's future. Now it's up to us. We're supposed to leave here in a matter of days, and that means that those of us who are serious about this issue have to do something meaningful and important, and do it quickly.